Thank you for coming and joining us. Can you hear me in the back if I'm speaking without the mic right now? Yeah. Okay, good. I don't like the mic. If I need to use it, I will use it. So thank you for coming. I'd just like to make some introductions, tell you why you're here, and then a few of us are going to talk to you about different things tonight, so you don't just have to listen to one person for an hour. So the guidance department is hosting this evening. Introductions. So some of the counselors, Ms. Valinati was meeting you downstairs. She might be one of your son's counselors. She was down at the front. Mr. Guglielmo is over here in the yellow shirt. I guess I should go. Ms. Hackle is right over here in the red. Ms. Robinson is in the middle. I'm Jean Sherman. And then Ms. Valinati met downstairs, and Mr. Temkin couldn't be here tonight. So I'm not sure if everybody's met their counselors yet. Just a show of hands. How many freshman parents are here, so we have a sense of who our audience is. Okay, that's great. Sophomore parents? Okay. Junior? And senior? Thank you. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate that you care about this, that you're interested in this, and hopefully you'll get something out of it and we can start things moving, right, with your sons. So just why are we here tonight? To help you understand his world. I think we might take for granted what an adolescent boy's world is because we live in it a lot. 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year. And, but maybe there's things that would be helpful for us to share with you that we understand about boys' world. And maybe to help also with the information that we're giving you from the surveys that we've done over the last couple of years, just what to look out for, how to keep them healthy, how to keep them safe. Why is it so hard? Why does communication break down with a teenage boy? If you have daughters, you might know that things are a little bit different with a girl in the house, a teenage girl in the house, and a teenage boy in the house. So what is going on with the boys that make it so difficult for them and for us? How can we open up the lines of communication? And how can you recognize the times, the ways, the appropriate ways in which to do that and the appropriate times in which to do that? And then how to help him communicate with you and do so more effectively, appropriately at home, and share some of that information with you. So I think those are kind of the topics that we want to cover while we're here. I'm going to let Mr. Guglielmo start with you, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Oh, quick, bathrooms are in the corner. If anybody, men and ladies' rooms are through the door over there in case anybody needs a bathroom, and there's a water fountain over there.
Hey, hello. Can you guys hear me? Wonderful, wonderful. So like Ms. Sherman said, my name is Mr. Guglielmo. Boys call me Mr. G for short. Today, I'm going to be discussing the 2 surveys that Xavier has administered over the last 3 years. There's one survey on the left right now. It's called the FCD, Student Attitude and Behavior Survey. It stands for the Free from Chemical Dependency. It's similar but different to the Student Wellness and Climate Survey on the right. Both surveys were administered to the students grades 9 through 12. Most of the students took both surveys, not all students took both. And the big part here is that the FCD and the Hanover research teams vetted the data. They have checks and measures built in for reliability. There's questions that showed up multiple times to catch inconsistent responses. So we really do believe that this data is valid and useful, and that's why we're going to share it with you today. So each survey had a different set of goals. The FCD survey really looked at the behaviors and the attitudes from the boys. It examined closely substance use, behaviors regarding substance use, and we were able to put some quantitative information and some data to the test here. The Student Wellness and Climate Survey gave us a better understanding from the students' perspectives of what the community was like, what's going on in the environment. Are the boys getting along? Are they healthy? Are they taking care of themselves? So FCD is a little bit more substance-driven, and the Climate and Wellness is much more overall well-being for your sons. These are some of the key findings. So I want to leave this up for a moment so that you guys get a chance to read. Important ones. I think from the FCD you see that the students really hold positive beliefs and decision-making at Xavier. They feel very welcomed here. They feel like they belong here. They feel that this is a positive environment. There was a concern, and we have seen the data now, that there is an alcohol use that progresses from 9th through 12th grade. A lot of the data is consistent with the nation norms, so it's nothing to really be extremely worried about. But this is a really great opportunity for you guys to see the numbers, to see how the students are thinking about the information, and then get a sense from the guidance staff as how we as a team can help your sons. With the climate and wellness survey, again, we're seeing really positive results. The overall feeling is that students feel welcome here. They feel that this is an environment where they can get along with each other and they can be very positive. The wellness survey hit on 2 areas of concern that we think are extremely important: sleep patterns and stress and anxiety. So as I go through my slides, there's going to be some data kind of touching upon substance use, touching upon sleep and anxiety, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end if necessary. So I'd love to start with the good news first, all right? So if we look at the FCD, we're looking at the first 2. Let's see if this works. Boom, the first 2 right here. We're looking at almost half of the students in our school aren't drinking or are drinking less than 3 times a year. Those are really good numbers. Okay, we don't have a high percentage of students that are categorized into the high-risk drinkers, and I'll touch upon that in a little bit. We have some students, right, 73% say they have typically never used marijuana, so there leaves a small 20 to 30% of students that have used it. And then what's really nice, and you're going to start to see connections between the FCD results and the student wellness results. 90% of students have never used alcohol, marijuana, or other drugs before or coming to school or school events. That directly relates to this top one right here on the student wellness side. 91% of our students strongly agree that Xavier has high expectations for student achievement. So while they're coming to school and while they're staying involved in Xavier activities, they're not using substances. Xavier is a protective factor for your sons not to use. That is a huge, huge statement right there. When they're here, they're safe, and they're making good decisions. I like the last one on the right. When considering family members, 78% would seek emotional support from you. So the fact that you're here today is tremendous. Go home, have a conversation with them, keep it short, revisit this conversation multiple times over the next few weeks and months. Your connection to your sons is tremendous. It may not seem like it, but they need you. So there are some areas of concern, and touch upon them in a little bit. Right, we saw alcohol use, the increase in trends of vaping or electronic cigarettes. Okay, with the student wellness, we do see sleep patterns, stress and anxiety, and some peer-to-peer verbal harassment. So we're going to look specifically at some data for the FCD part. 10th graders, right? They're on par. This is the results from the 2016 survey. So the 2016 sophomores, the 10th graders, okay, they are now our seniors. Okay, they're seniors here. So the freshmen that took this survey are also our juniors. So we're going to try to continue to administer these types of surveys. That way we can continually track the data, gain information, and share it back with parents. So like I said earlier, there is that trend. We see our 10th graders, they exceed or are on par with substance use across the nation. And then we see our 12th graders exceeding the normal use. So that's an area of concern. Your sons are drinking. They're not drinking all the time, but it's happening. And then we were able to identify 143 surveys across 10th and 12th graders where students were categorized as high-risk drinkers. And again, the slide's pretty self-explanatory. They drank 5 or more times in the past 30 days. That's, I guess you would typically maybe consider that like binge drinking. So we had a small percentage, but it's still present. So that's an area of concern with alcohol. I'm going to try to make a connection down here with the health and wellness in a little bit. but the high-risk drinkers are significantly more likely to have serious health consequences, sleep, anxiety issues. So that's why we're partnering with FCD and Hanover to kind of make the connection between substance use and then overall health and well-being. The e-cigarettes and vaping and marijuana trends, we'll start with the positive. 87% have not smoked a cigarette in the past 12 months. That's fantastic. That's amazing. We know how bad cigarettes are for our bodies. We know how bad they are. It's a good number. 87% are not using. The scary number is the 22% annual. That's all students. And then the 36% of seniors specifically using vaporizers. That is the new trend. They don't smoke cigarettes anymore. They vape. All right? The little picture over here on the right, that's a Juul. Okay? A Juul is a sleek vaporizer. The pods are on the right-hand side. Those are going to be different flavors: mango, cucumber, cappuccino. Juul, Jull, the company, says they don't market towards teenagers. Yes, thank you. Okay? Go on the Juul website. There are warnings. There are health warnings. The issue, and when we speak to the students, they say it's safer than smoking cigarettes. Safer doesn't mean that it is still safe. There are metals, there are chemicals that are used inside the substance to produce the vapor, to produce the smoke that you see and the flavors. So the boys don't understand that these chemicals are going to have long-term effects, just like my grandparents didn't know how bad smoking was when they started. So again, safer than cigarettes doesn't mean safe. That is a big concern. These are some statistics of the consequences of high-risk use drinking. Some big ones, right? 80% had gotten sick and vomited or had a hangover. We look at 34% had gotten into a sexual situation they later regretted. 32 and 31 were injured and passed out. Those are life-threatening consequences. These aren't, oh, I got in trouble at school. Oh, mom and dad grounded me. These are major health concerns, injuries that could damage your son's life for a while, reputations with the sexual assault claims that are happening. These are things that we're trying to educate your boys on. So it's important that you know these types of consequences are happening, and the boys are reporting them as well. I like this chart. It's a good one. You see the non-drinkers, they report the highest amount of A's. 96% of the students say academics are important to them. Right? That's all students at Xavier. And then we see the use, the students that use marijuana and the students that use alcohol more regularly, they have typical B's. So if 96% of the kids are saying that academics are important to them, well, there's a big chunk of 50% of kids that are probably damaging that academic transcript, that academic profile, by introducing substances at an early age. With the FCD, we actually had an opportunity to create supplemental questions. Those were Xavier-specific questions that we asked the FCD to put into the survey. There's a lot to read. I'll kind of point out a few. I think notable ones would be the first one, right? 38% say that it would be easy to get alcohol from home. So just consider, right? We are adults. We drink. Be mindful of your son's access to a liquor cabinet or to alcohol. It happens. They say they can get it. The parent one, the majority of Xavier students say that parents are rarely present. So some may be present, some might not be present. It's a good opportunity for you to talk at events like this, exchange phone numbers, get to know who your son is hanging out with, get to know the parents, talk with the parents. In the student handbook, there should be contact information for the parents. You can contact them to see who's going to be home, if Johnny's having people over, check in, ask questions, and work together. 59% think it would be easy to get alcohol from any source. As we look towards the bottom with the greatest stressors, right? This is still the FCD survey. But what are the greatest stressors? Academics, expectations, and college expectations. And this is where we really start to seeing an overlap between the FCD results and the student wellness results. So, moving on to the climate and wellness, stress and anxiety was a major concern that came out through the data that we saw. So the top 3 sources of anxiety and stress: school in general, homework, preparing for college. So number 1 and number 3 were exactly the same on the FCD results. So it's really, I don't want to say great, but it happens to be convenient that the school stress is present on both surveys. Again, showing that the data that we're looking at is reliable and we're going to use it. The chart on the right just kind of shows how many students responded to each one of those questions, and they rated it as a moderate or large source of stress. Again, we see school, homework, college, career, athletics, relationships, physical appearance, mental health, physical health, jobs, identity. These are all things that are revolving around your son's life, and a lot of them cause stress. Now, we looked a little more broader. Just over half of the students, 51%, that's the 2 bar graphs on the right, they reported feeling stressed or anxious often or almost always. That is alarming, right? We're looking at 9th graders, 44% coming into Xavier. We've been here a month. They are stressed already. They need some downtime. They need to relax. They need to exercise. They need to eat healthy. They need to get involved with Xavier activities. And then you see the trend increases until junior year. And the major spike in junior year probably has a lot to do with college. College, again, we saw on both FCD and the Climate and Wellness Survey that college preparedness and getting ready for college was a major increase in stress factors. So that's why we're seeing the juniors feeling the stress more. Raise your hand if your son is a junior. Okay, college is looming. The SATs are looming, plus AP exam, plus classes, plus sports. Their bodies are changing. A lot is going on junior year. So keep an eye on your boys and keep them talking. Sleep. Sleep came out as another huge concern. Okay? Nearly 60%. So we're looking at over half of our students, the left 2 bar graphs, reporting less than 6 hours of sleep a night. The developing brain needs to rest. When you go to bed, your brain grows, it heals, it's recharged for the next day. So when we see the boys coming in at 7:30 in the morning, dragging their feet off the trains, they look tired, they look sluggish, it makes sense. The majority of them are not sleeping those 8 to 9 hours. We do have a nice 38% is 7 to 8 hours, but go back to bedtimes, cell phones, right? Technology before bed is going to keep them awake. Netflix, the cell phone, the iPads, all of that stimuli before bed is going to keep them charged. They're not going to get full nights of sleep. And if we as the guidance department try to work on time management to try to help them use their free time in school to get work done, to stay positive, that way they can go home, shower, eat, do a little bit of work, and go to bed. And the data is pretty clear. The older you get, the less sleep you get. Our 12th graders, 78% of them are saying that they're getting less than 6 hours of sleep. That is a very large number. Similarly to the FCD, we were able to look at open-ended responses. We had the supplemental questions, but with the wellness, we have these open-ended responses. So they weren't multiple choice. Your sons were able to respond and plug in handwritten answers. These were some of the common responses that we saw. Lack of sleep and energy makes me very stressed and anxious. Balancing my work with my outside school life, test sleep, grades, my report card. Studying, the after-school activities, and my commute All of these things are weighing on your sons. Sleep and anxiety, they're very correlated. Part of the wellness survey looked at harassment. The numbers weren't bad, so there's not too much information to share. I think with the strict rules, the moral and the ethical conversations we have in religion class and in advisement and in guidance, it's helping your boys learn to treat each other nicely. 36% of the students report experience verbal abuse from others, and these were some of the common shared experiences: academic struggles and academic achievement. Your sons might be getting teased for political beliefs, physical appearance, race, sexual orientation. Xavier's Dean of Students Office is committed to enforcing the rules, and our administration is also committed to educating the students on the Xavier Handbook Harassment Policy. All right, it's a very detailed policy. It has reporting information. It has examples. It has the chain of communication, who your sons can go to. Please read that policy. Get familiar with it. Have that conversation with your son. What should he do if he sees something? What should he do if he's being harassed? That way he knows what to do. Administration also has class year meetings where they review this information. Freshmen will be having this meeting, I believe, Tuesday, Wednesday, okay? So Wednesday might be a great opportunity to check in with your freshman sons. How was the meeting? I read the policy. Did they talk about X? Did they talk about Y? Who do you go to? Engage them in these conversations. I can't end on negatives, so I'm going to end on a positive, all right? Going back to this idea that Xavier is a protective factor for your sons. We see awesome data. 89% feel valued as a person. 92% feel that teachers and staff care about them. 88% say it's easy to make friends without drinking at school. This is great. On the wellness side, I feel safe. 89%. I feel safe at school events. 89%. I feel like I belong. 72%. Those numbers are great. Xavier can be an awesome place to have fun. It can be a place where they make healthy decisions, where they make lifelong friends, and they enjoy a healthy child and adolescence. Okay? If you have any questions, I'm happy to look at the data. I'm going to pass the mic to Mrs. Sherman.
Okay, I don't like the mics, but I'll try it. So, okay. So we just heard some maybe scary information. I think that as a parent, some of you may know I have a son that's here as a junior in the school. I think sitting here as a parent, if I had heard this, I would have started to get worried and think about, what am I not thinking about? What are the things that I haven't spoken to him about? Is it too late? It is not too late. Knowledge is power. That's why we're sitting here with you. That's why we're sharing this information with you. So now we can start these conversations. So we can start wherever your boy is at, freshman, sophomore, junior year, and you can consult with us about where do I go, how do I start these conversations. But we want you to feel assured that this is not too late for you to have any of these conversations with them if now you're just feeling like, how do I backtrack now? Let's first start with, where is your boy at right now? Adolescent development. Adolescence is the bridge between childhood and adulthood. I think we know that, right? But it is so much more complicated than that. Our kids, our boys, are changing so much in these 4 years. So it is their job, it is their task right now to separate from us, but they're still dependent on us. I mean, your senior parents are probably in a little bit of a different place. Your freshman parents maybe are seeing this now. But if you think about when your son was 2 or 3, and when he would run away from you and maybe not listen to what you were saying, but then he'd run back and make sure you were still there and you were okay. There was a lot of testing going on at ages 2, 3 years old. It repeats itself again. That happens again in adolescence. That's what they're doing. They're testing you again right now in different ways. And so some of that is by breaking your rules. It's by acting like they don't believe in what you believe in anymore. It's challenging you on things that seem kind of not worth the challenge. They want to see where you are in that. They want to see if you're still there, even when they try to push you away. Right now, they're trying to learn how to respond to so many different situations. Our freshman boys are trying to learn how to adjust to this high school, this commute, new people, new classes, 5 or 6, 7 different teachers with different expectations. It's challenging. They're trying to find their place now in the Xavier world. Our junior and senior parents, your boys are now trying to figure out, where am I next? Where am I going next? For some, it's so exciting, but it's still scary. And for some, it's just scary. They've got all of that they're trying to face right now. Our sophomores, I had sophomores tell me recently that this is kind of an easy year, because now they feel a little confident, right? They've been here for a year. They're not new. They know what they're in for. They're not yet worried about college. Like, they kind of feel like they can settle, which is why I think sophomores get in trouble, right? So that we got to keep an eye on our sophomores and remind them that they can't take it too easy. This is still an important year. What's happening? Okay, they're searching for their identity. Some of your boys come here and they were athletes, and they're not athletes anymore. They didn't make a team. They've got to figure out who they are. Maybe they were not accepted into some of the honors classes. They've been an honors student all their life, or top of the class in 8th grade, and now they're not that anymore. So who am I if I'm not that smart kid at the top of my class? I'm now kind of one of everybody. Am I average? I'm not average. We have to help them figure out what are their strengths? Where are they special? Help them find that identity. They are seeking an identity, could be sexual identity. You know, we are dealing with that at Xavier. We do have students that we are finding are trying to figure out who they are in their world of dating and relationships. They're seeking more independence from you. Again, that's all normal, and we try to, in age-appropriate ways, give them that independence. By letting them come to Xavier, most of your sons are traveling great distances, right, and using mass transportation that they never did before. That's giving them some independence. And probably, I think what's most painful for me is how the relationship between my son and I changed. Prefers not to spend time with us as much, and the older he gets, the less and less time it is that he wants to be with me and the rest of the family. It's more time with friends, it's more time alone, it's more time on video games, it's more time on his phone. Sometimes there's more arguments, you know. Again, it's that challenging. It's trying to keep that distance. It's pushing you away a little bit. It's making himself feel independent. He wants to see things differently from you. He wants to be his own person. So maybe it could be political. It could be religious. It could be in the music he's listening to, and, you know, the language, the noise, you know, but my parents said the same thing about the stuff I was listening to. So I think some of it's appropriate, but they really want to be their own people. And then maybe he's a different kid. So a parent once said to me, you know, it's the disrespect, the silence, the anger, the bad language, but then he's still that face of an angel. It's still my little boy. How could this still be my boy that is acting like this? So we still love them even when they act like this. We still tell them we love them even when they act like this. And so this is where we're moving on to now, as I'll let Ms. Robinson pick it up. We're going to talk more about now how to keep this relationship strong, how to communicate, and how to take care of him. Oh, so if you're doing all these things, so I forgot I wanted a little positivity we always try to end on. So all of these changes, if he's doing these things, you are doing a good job. You let him come to Xavier and have independence, right? You're letting him try new things. You're letting him find himself. As long as you are doing these things and now he wants to leave you a little bit, it means you've done a good job. Do you want this?
Try, yeah. Can you guys hear me? Am I speaking loud enough? Okay, I'm going to try not to use the microphone. So as Jean mentioned, there is this change in adolescent development. And not to get all like scientific, but just to give you a little blurb on this. So after puberty, dopamine, which is that transmitter with the drive and motivation and all of those different things, so that changes and it is heightened. And so that dopamine is going to cause this impulsivity that maybe you might see in teenagers. So much of their life is colored by peers too. And so with this shift in teenagers, we know obviously 10 to 20 years in teenagers. Where we grew up, I think, going to our parents for their opinions on things, a lot of it now is happening from their peers or the internet. So there has been that shift and that change with that. Kids are less independent now. They're not making as many decisions, and obviously as a teenager, we don't want them making all the decisions, right? But they're not making even those small decisions. Spending more time playing video games. Some of you guys may have seen this with your kids. And even that has changed. I grew up playing Nintendo and Atari and those cartridges in there, and now they're communicating with kids through these video games. So that some kids are actually making friends through the playing of the video games. And too much time on the phone and laptop. So the average age that a kid gets an iPhone now is 8 to 10 years old. The amount of time that kids spend texting and being online is 6 to 8 hours a day. It's kind of all they know. This generation, they call it the I generation, because they're growing up with all of this technology, which is very different than what we are used to. And teenagers are prone to addiction too, so it's something that we need to kind of keep an eye on, especially with the video games and the iPhone and the laptop and all of that. Okay, so commonly heard from parents. These are things that we have heard from parents. He doesn't talk to me like he used to. Jean had mentioned, of having her son not necessarily having that interaction as much anymore. You're used to your kids going to you with things, and you start to see this shift and you start to see this change as they get older. Maybe not necessarily as a freshman or a sophomore, but then all of a sudden junior and senior year. He spends so much time in his room, and maybe that's playing video games, maybe that is doing his homework, maybe that's texting on the laptop. He tunes me out most of the time. He's physically there, but maybe he's not necessarily listening to you while you're talking. He seems to be, or I don't know how he spends his time. Maybe he's coming home a few hours after school, and you're not quite sure, what he's doing during that time. And he seems to be angrier, sulkier, moodier. That sophomore year, I always tell the guys, the sophomore slump is a very real thing. Freshman year they come in, and all the attention is on them because they're transitioning to high school. And there's all these different changes. And then junior year, they're focused on SATs and starting the college process. And then seniors, they're all applying to colleges. So sophomores, I feel like sometimes get a little lost in the mix, and we see that slump happen. And I feel like that's kind of when we start to see some more of their moods changing. So things that we have heard from students that might be preventing them from coming to you guys as parents, or maybe preventing them from communicating with you guys. He believes talking to parents won't make a difference and will probably make the situation worse. He doesn't want his parents to get angry at him, although maybe he seems like he doesn't care. They do care. He doesn't want his parents to get angry with the person he's having the problems with. He doesn't want you guys as parents to be getting involved. He doesn't want his parents to think he has bad judgment. We know that they don't have all bad judgment. He doesn't want to get into trouble or even have his parents worry, because yes, they are concerned about that. He doesn't want his parents to become involved and cause public humiliation. God forbid that happen. He doesn't want his parents to react. And of course, the most important one, he doesn't want his parents taking away his technology, because that is essentially their lifeline, so they think. So this is a good depiction kind of what is going on in their mind, and all of these different stressors. The college, the SATs, parents, peers, identity, our culture, Xavier's academic rigor and responsibilities. A big reason as to why this stress is happening and that we are seeing that more, a big chunk of that is focused on this academic achievement. And you saw when Joe had that slide of some some of the comments that kids had made, so much of that is focused on that. But in addition to, they have all these different things. So I think that this is a really good depiction on kind of what's going on in their mind and what's going on in their brain. And then all of this stress. So they often feel these things, but they don't necessarily communicate that to you. And that could be for various reasons. Maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe it's they don't know how to. Maybe it's they're uncomfortable doing that. So these are all the different emotions that they are feeling but don't necessarily know how to express. Okay, so this increase in stress, anxiety, and depression is so huge. You know, we see it all. You see it as parents. You see it in the world today. We see it here at school. So like I said, classroom pressure and competitiveness. Even kindergarten isn't what it used to be. You know, kids are not playing like they used to play. So there has been this huge change with that, and that is a large portion as to why that increase has happened. Their coping skills, this is really important, their coping skills with mistakes, obstacles, and setbacks. We need to help them as adults in their lives. We need to help them learn how to deal with negative outcomes, because let's be realistic, they're gonna happen at some point. And so a lot of times in their lives when these things happen, it's just they don't know how to deal with that. And I think a lot of kids sometimes, you know, they'll grow up thinking that they need to be happy around the clock. And if they're not happy, that there's something wrong. But it's normal to feel, you know, angry or to feel sad or to feel disappointed. That is going to happen. Nobody is perfect. They're going to make mistakes. But they really have a difficult time with kind of overcoming those things. Their leisure time is spent differently. Again, they hear me, I feel like, say this all the time, that, you know, I grew up in a small suburb, but I was always outside playing. I'm riding my bike and doing those things. And that's not necessarily happening as much anymore. That face-to-face interaction is not necessarily happening as much. And then the smartphones and the social media. So research says that like they can't necessarily say it's specifically smartphones and social media that is the big reason of depression and anxiety, but they say it's the most plausible cause because when they saw this spike in that happen, that's when smartphones became huge and popular and social media and all of those different things. So the good news, because obviously I want to tell you good news, parents want to be emotionally connected to their sons, right? That's why you guys are here. You want to be connected to your sons. And they want to be connected to you guys as well too. And why is it so difficult? Because of all these things that I just said. You know, all of these different changes and things that have happened. So, some suggestions for parents. Eat dinner with your kids as often as you can. Now, I get schedules can be tough, right? And this is all just realistic of what can you do as a family. Maybe it's twice a week, you know, but even that time, don't have phones around, you know. Don't let the TV be on in the background. You want to make sure you have that connection, and if those devices are around, you're not going to have that connection. Make family time a priority. Show them that so they see it. Create rituals. I mean, that could be going to dinner or going to the movies, you know, if it's feasible, a family vacation. Monitor video games, okay? They're not all bad. We know that. But even maybe learn what they are doing. Have them show you what game that they're playing. Don't have them in their bedrooms because even more they will continue to be disconnected. So I heard this once, and I put this up here because smartphones is a tool you use. It shouldn't be a tool that uses you. We need to help this generation use their potential and help them seek out their desires and their strengths too. We can do that as adults to help them with that. You guys as parents are the most valuable resource A lack of sleep is a cause and a symptom of anxiety. These kids should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and a lot of them are not. Enforce and be consistent. They need authority in their lives. And then just a few more here. So let them make some decisions. Now, obviously reasonable decisions, right? They can't be making these huge ones. But let them make decisions that are reasonable. Try to be a non-anxious presence for them because they're going to pick up on that. Model and encourage unplugged downtime. I mean, we're all guilty of it, right? It's very easy to get connected to those, or want to be connected to those things, or respond to emails, or respond immediately to a text message. Support autonomy in students and in teachers too. Give kids an accurate model of success. Kind of back to the other one, it's important for parents to stay calm when things are stressful. And try to have conversations with your sons, even those uncomfortable ones. And I realize that they are really uncomfortable. Not that I know as a parent, but I've been here for 11 years and I've heard it from parents before so many times. I would imagine it's very uncomfortable. But try to have those uncomfortable conversations. Now,
Before we get to this, I mentioned, right, I'm a mom, my son is a junior here, I have a daughter that's in 8th grade. Very, very, very different kids, not just because, very much so because one's a boy and one's a girl, but their temperaments, their personalities, so different. You know, for full transparency, as a guidance counselor, I work really well with boys. As a mom, really not so much. So, you know, I'm in the same place as you. It is easy to work with somebody else's son and be open and listen to him and not have any feelings about my inadequacy and judging myself against other parents and feeling like I don't have enough time to give them, or I just blew it, or so all of these things make me nervous too. So I just am not coming from a place of better. I'm going to give you some examples as I talk to you about some of the ways in which I try and fail. You know, in terms of the dinner, I mean, if we get to sit down twice a week together as a family for dinner, that's a good week. With everybody's different schedules, it is really hard for us to do that. In terms of what you said, mentioning create rituals. So once a week we do try to get out and have a dinner somewhere where it's just us talking, and that's really about all we can do. We can't really do much more than that right now. So there are just very little things that I'm trying really hard to do, and the older they get, the more activities they're involved in, the more homework and responsibilities there are. It gets really, really difficult. So there is no perfect. I also think I'm trying hard not to overreact and take my own advice sometimes. So I'll get to that in a second. What do our kids need? So what do they need to navigate adolescence and become healthier adults, right? That's what we want, right? They're not adults yet. This is all just the stepping stones. It was so easy when they were little. It was so easy when they were little. And you kind of saw what was coming. You knew what to expect. We don't necessarily know, and the world is so different. So it's really hard to kind of be one step ahead of them. They're ahead of us, leaps and bounds quite sometimes. What can we do? We want them to be able to ask for help. We want them to recognize that it is okay when I don't know something, when I don't understand something, when I am confused, whatever it may be, that I can ask for help. So we try to do that here at Xavier by having our community period. That's one little way. Having community period when they're struggling, teachers are available. The expectation is you're asking for help from your teacher. When boys come to us, a little less so in freshman year, but if we have an older sophomore, junior, senior maybe come to us and say they're having maybe a problem with the teacher, or there is an issue on a sports team, or sometimes something at home, we try to work with them to have that conversation with the adults. That might be uncomfortable, that might be hard. Or we try to say, well, what can I do to help this happen? I'm going to send the teacher an email to tell the teacher that you're going to come see him or her tomorrow during community period. Still has to have a conversation, but I'm taking a little step to help you be independent and ask for help. they need to make mistakes. This is so hard, and it is so hard to let them do that. It's okay when they fail a test, when they're not prepared for it. It's not okay when they're not prepared for it. It's okay when they suffer the consequences. So my poor kid has to deal with me telling his secrets to everybody. But over the summer, he's a junior. He was in AP English. He did not do his reading until the very, very end of the summer. Two, and we have junior AP English students, not easy reads. And I was telling him all summer, in the beginning of the summer anyway, and then I just let him take it and run with it. If he didn't, I can't fix this for him. He was going to have Miss Gannon, and he was going to be in trouble. I know a mom in here feels the pain. She would make it really hard for him if he did not do the reading and he did not do well. I knew what he was in for. I work with her. Now I'm going to also have to live with her, telling me that my son didn't do the reading. I had to let that happen. He did most of it. We didn't get the scores back. I have no idea, but he did it like, at the very end of the summer. I have no idea how well he did it, but I had to let him do that. I'm pretty sure that test score is going to be pretty bad. I'm pretty sure that's starting him off for his AP English class, his first AP class, poorly, but I don't think he's ever going to do that again. I wasn't going to save him from it. So they develop resilience by failing. We hear so much in the presentations that we go to, in the workshops, in the books that we read, and I think we hear about it on the news. Young people have not developed resilience, how to handle things when life gets hard, and it is going to get hard. And the place to learn about it is when they're young, when we can help them through it, when we can be there to support them through those hard times. And so maybe that is that he got a jug, and maybe it doesn't seem fair, because usually he's a good kid, and he didn't need to be late, and it was the subway that was late, and it really wasn't his fault. I know, I get it. I mean, I feel that there's some unfairness sometimes, but he will survive that jug, and he will learn that life is not fair, and maybe he'll leave a little earlier just in case the trains do shut down or slow down or break down, so that that won't happen again. But it's those little ways that we help them develop resilience and deal with the bigger things that are going to happen. And then they need us to act honorably. We can't say one thing, but do another. Simply texting and driving, right? We tell them, they're all trying, we've got boys trying to get their license now. We tell them they can't do that. We should not be doing that. Talking poorly about somebody, using language that they're not allowed to use. All of it, those types of things. They need to see in us an honorable person that they can respect. And they pay attention. When they were little, they would repeat everything you said, right? You knew you couldn't say things because then they'd be off and running and saying it at the grocery store, some bad words you said. It's kind of, now it's not they're telling everybody, but it's in their head. And they're judging you now. They're paying attention to what you're doing, and they're deciding, do I respect you or not? How much do I respect you? How much of a model are you for me? So effective communication. I'm getting better at this. It's hard, right? Son plays football. He doesn't actually play football, okay? He's on the team. He's on the sidelines. He's not playing yet. It is excruciatingly painful to watch every single game and he's not playing. He wants to be on it. He's showing up. He's doing it. Hopefully next year as a senior, he'll play. What I don't do is ask him, are you upset that you're not playing football? Why aren't you playing football? How are the practices going? How much time do you get? I gotta back off. I'm letting him lead me in some of those things. When he gets home from school, he's exhausted, he's hungry, he wants to shower. When he walks in, I let him know, dinner will be ready, go shower, come up in 10 minutes, dinner will be ready for you. I sit with him. Slowly I ask him about the day. I read his mood. I want to ask 1,000 questions, but I'm reading his mood and I'm taking my time. If you did do this, right? If your son says he needs to talk to you, if you can stop everything you're doing to do that, stop. It's easy to say, yeah, in a couple of minutes, let me just finish what I'm doing. Or, I gotta make this phone call, I'm in the middle of work. If you can stop, let him know that he is so important that whatever you're doing right now, I'm gonna listen to what you have to say. And if you don't really have the time, then importance. I've got to finish this. There's a deadline. In an hour, I'm coming to you and we're going to talk. Okay? Make sure that you let him know how important it is and when it is going to happen. If it can't happen, but if you could stop, stop. So, you know, I'm a mom and I cry, you know, over the summer. What did I do? Thank you. So he's not going to listen to me if I'm overreacting and I'm over emotional, or if I'm yelling about something, you know, because I'm having an immediate reaction. I try really, really hard to wait and think about what I want to say. So another example of him. He went on the CFX trip this summer. He came home at the airport. I'm waiting for him. I haven't seen him in a week. I'm so excited to see my son. Can't wait to hear about everything they've done on this phenomenal CFX trip. And all the boys are coming off. I'm there with a bunch of other parents. All the other boys hug their mothers. He comes over and he kind of like leans in. So I try to hug him and he leans out. I was embarrassed. I was hurt. I was mad. I was leaving the next day for the CFX trip that he just got back from. So I was thinking, I'm not going to see him now for a week. And this is what you just little. But I really want, and then I thought I'm going to get in the car with him and then I'm going to tell him how I feel. And I thought, I'm leaving tomorrow. If I say anything that now I'm gone a week and I feel bad about it, it's not going away. I can come back to this. He knows. He knows what he did. I can come back to this. So I came back. Now we had this nice thing. We both did the CFX trip. We both worked in the same house. We had something to talk about. I waited a little bit, a couple of days after I was back, and I just said I had some things I wanted to talk to him about. And I went back to that, and I just said I was so hurt by that. That I was embarrassed and I was hurt. And I said, every other kid is hugging. These are parents. People hug their parents. They tell their parents they love them. That's not weird. So it's okay. Nobody's judging you. So just thinking, taking a step back so the message is heard. So that the message is heard. Not just so that you're reacting in the moment and they're not hearing you. And it took me a long time to get here. And it doesn't always happen, but that was one example where I was really proud of myself. I let it sit. Like really, really was upset by that. So overreacting and, you know, jumping into something maybe when you're not prepared to have that conversation. Wait. And then keeping the conversation short, not quite like I'm doing right now, because they're not going to listen for very long, and they're not going to listen if you're, you know, kind of yelling at them, if you're patronizing, if you are telling them how it should be. So keeping conversation short, to the point, saying what your experience, your feeling, whatever is. You need to have a perspective on what he did wrong, what you disagree with. Continue the conversation sometimes at another time. Sometimes we need to say, you know what, we're going to come back to this. I need to think, you need to think, we're going to come back to this. You can always, always, always come back. I'll see you with that. All right. So what to do? Recognize him as an individual. He may not be who you thought he was going to be. He may not be doing the things. I'm not talking about the drugs and alcohol and bad things that we were talking about. I'm talking about maybe, you know, you thought he was going to come into high school and he was going to be in all honors class, and he's not quite there. Maybe he was, you know, always playing baseball, and now he's like, you know what? I think I'm not going to try track, or I'm not even don't feel like doing sports anymore. So maybe he's not who you want to be, but recognize who he is as an individual, support him in what makes him happy. Try to understand the life he's living. So I've talked a lot about kind of what the pressures are, what their experiences are. It's easy to say, well, when I was a kid, you know, you don't know how hard it was when I was a kid. I didn't have the internet to get all my, I had to go to a library. I had to look in encyclopedias. I had to do research. It's good for them to know that, but always saying that, how easy they have it. They don't see it as easy. They didn't live our lives. They don't quite get that. And it shuts them down, right? So try to understand what their lives are. So why are video games so enticing? It is a way for them to socialize. It is a world where they get to win, where they get to feel powerful, where they get to be great at something. They get lost. They can go away from all of this pressure. That's healthy. We did it too in different ways when we were growing up. It's not unhealthy. I was speaking, we had somebody come and present to us in the great on a test, but you know he worked hard. You know he studied. You know that he spent time writing that paper. You know he went to see the teacher for help. You know he tried in the game. Just what are the things that we can compliment them on a lot, so that they feel supported and loved by you. Respect them. So that does mean just, I think, it sounds like, of course I respect myself. I think we tell him to go take out the garbage. Go take out the garbage. He's like, okay, in a minute. We get to a battle of wills. I said to go take out the garbage now. In a minute. Why? What is he doing? If he's playing Fortnite and he says, give me 10 minutes when my game is over, is that okay to let him just finish the game and then take out the garbage? He feels better. You get it done. If it does, things don't have to be done right away, and you respect his time, you respect him as a human being, you respect what he's involved in. These are the little things that help your life get better with him. These are the little things that keep the peace. Giving him a little space, giving him a little respect, right? Maybe there are chores that he's supposed to get done. Just remind him, when I don't know when they're gonna get done this week, just remember you've gotta get those things done for today, or whatever it is. Without that battle of wills, like it has to be done now because I said it's done now because I'm your parent because I said so. That doesn't work. Boundaries and consequences. So having clear boundaries with your guys about what your expectations are at school, at home, going out. And then what are the consequences and sticking with those consequences. And I know it hurts you more than it hurts them sometimes to take things away from them, or that they're not allowed to participate in something. The older they are, the tougher the consequences have to be. I have lots of parents saying, about the video game, or, about they don't want to take it away, the Xbox. Sometimes you got it. He's going to survive, but sometimes if that's what is causing the school problems, if that is why is that what he's sucked into, then maybe it has to go away. He's not going to a party that he was allowed to go to, and now he's not allowed to go because of something that happened, and everybody's going. He'll survive. And I know it's hard. I know it's so hard, but sticking to the consequences, because they'll say they know that somebody's not going to stick with it, that their parents aren't going to. They know what they can get away with and what they can't get away with. Okay, I want to go on. So what not to do, okay? So you don't want to fix their problems. We can't fix their problems. It's so easy. I want to sometimes when these kids come into my office and they're so upset about something, and I know all I have to do is go to the teacher and say, what's going on? Can you help them out? But they have to learn how to take care of these things themselves. If you lecture, if you assume what he's saying, let him finish his thought. Listen. As counselors, I think why, I said before, it's easier for me to listen to your son's talk and not have a reaction because I'm not emotionally invested. This isn't about my parenting or about my son. So we listen fully. And when they're done talking, we can say, okay, did you just want to talk to me about that? Did you just want to get it out? Or do you want to do something with this? What do you want to do with it? What can I do to help you? So as a parent, you can do that too. You don't have to fix everything. You can listen fully. And sometimes they just need somebody to listen and take it in. And not jump in and be like, wait. What did you just say about him? Like immediately we might feel like that's the kid that got you in trouble, or we're listening to things. Just let the whole thing, let him say what he needs to say. These are the things you'll be so surprised at how much these little things are going to open up the lines of communication. And if he says he's fine, we're talking about mental health stuff, If you don't feel like he's okay, if something doesn't seem right, just don't, because he says it's okay, let it go. You don't have to push and be a nag, but you can say, you know what, I don't think something's not feeling right to me and I'm worried. You don't have to push it, then you come back to it. Another time, maybe when they're going to bed, a lot of times guys like to talk at bedtime. We learn a lot in our offices when they're all just talking with each other. Boys, you might learn a lot in the car when they're in the back seat, you're driving somebody, a bunch of guys from a game, they talk and they forget that there's adults with them. All right. These are the important ones, right? Conversations about drug and alcohol use. Why is it important? Pretty obvious, right? You are the main factor in protecting your son against any kind of use. How you feel, what you talk about with them, you're in his head about what your expectations are, they are so much more easily influenced by drugs and alcohol, and it's so enticing and so pleasing, right, to their developing brain that, and they react so impulsively to things. They're not thinking clearly about what this use means. And the younger they start to use, the more increased risk of addiction or some sort of a problem. So we keep talking about the late use. We keep talking to them about why it's unhealthy. Of course, it seems repetitive. They've been hearing since they're little kids about don't do it. In grammar school, there's all these. They're already having conversations, but we keep saying it. Maybe we think, why do we have to have this conversation? Because we feel like my rules are clear. My son knows the consequences. What else is there to discuss? My son isn't doing anything. Still good to have the conversation. It is hard maybe to talk because maybe this is what I was doing when I was a teenager. Things were much less dangerous when you were a teenager. Things are a lot more risky. You don't have to tell them what we did as a teenager. You just let them know that as an adult, I know that this is unhealthy for you. I know people that have had problems. I know the risks of this. I know that earlier use creates more risk, more danger. And of course, boys don't want to talk. They don't. It is going to be awful, painful. He's going to roll his eyes. He's going to sit there with a flat affect. He does not want you to talk to him about this. But it is our role and our job to talk to them about these really difficult things. So, mixed messages, very briefly. I think sometimes we think, well, everybody's doing it. At some point in teenage years, everybody's going to have a beer. Everybody's going to try something. A lot, not everyone. We want to keep sending the message that it doesn't, like my mom used to, my parents used to tell me, if everybody was jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge? I know it's ridiculous. We want them to know that not everybody's doing it. I don't care what everybody's doing. I care about you. You're my son. I care about what the risks are for you. If there are addictions in the family, it's really important to share that with your son, so that they know that there's even a greater risk for them. Sometimes we can inadvertently condone drinking or other use with these mixed messages that we send, because, all right, if I let him drink with his friends in my basement, at least I know where everybody is, and it's okay. They're not really thinking about, I can only do this in the basement when my parents say it's okay, and it's a six-pack to me and a couple of friends. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay wherever it's okay. Or they will make it okay, even if they realize it's not okay. They will make it okay because they had it here, you were okay with it. Heard some parents talk about, they're going to go to college and drink anyway. Shouldn't we build up that tolerance? Shouldn't we let them have a little bit so that they're going to be okay when they start doing it anyway? Look, I don't have answers. I'm doing my best to fight it off too. I don't have the answer. I think these same things. I do wonder about, he's going to go off to college and explore the world, and how am I going to save him from himself? But I just really don't want him to do this yet. So that's the message. I'm just doing my best to keep telling him how dangerous this is, the issues that are in our family, the things that he needs to be aware of and worried about. And just, this is what I believe in. And this is you. There will be very severe and swift consequences when you get home, if you get home. And I'm either picking him up, or another parent I know is picking him up from the places that they go to, and one of us is always us when they get home, so that there's always that consistency. There's other hard conversations that we can have, right? Awful conversations, We've got to talk to them about dating. We've got to talk to them about, I believe, I know we are a Catholic school, I know that we believe that, and Xavier doesn't really talk about this, about sex outside of marriage. But I think as good parents of boys, we need to be talking to them about what our expectations are, or what our hopes are for their love of their body and care of their body, and how they treat a woman. We've got all of this Me Too maybe in your past you have a friend that overdosed, or maybe you have a friend that committed suicide, or in college there was an experience. Those are the things you can share openly and honestly. What was it like growing up for you? How strict were your parents? These are the kinds of things that we can talk to them about. Remaining calm, which can be hard when we're anxious about these, or maybe the conversation is happening because of something he's just a party he's been to, or an experience that just happened. We can be upset and emotional, but try to keep calm so that he hears you. I think it's our job as a parent to have all of these conversations with them, as hard as they are. Opportunities arise through the news, through the stuff that gets sent home from Xavier, from presentations like this. And it's never too late. You can always have these conversations. There are possibilities that pop up all the time that you can have that conversation. It's really important to let them know what your rules are, why you have them, and what those consequences are. Don't judge their friends, because they're never going to tell you about their friends. So that's hard. You can say, I'm uncomfortable when I worry when you stay out with him, and this is why I'm worried. I'm worried about that girl, and this is why I'm worried. But saying an awful thing about that person and being very judgmental just is going to push him away, and he's not going to tell you anymore. And he'll probably still be with that person, he's just not going to tell you that he's with that person and hang out with that person. And if for any reason things are changing, and maybe after this conversation today things are changing, you're going to let him know why. We're changing the rules, we're going to have a conversation about this, and this is why we're doing it. And when I say get creative, I mean something comes up in the news, that's an opportunity to talk. You read a book with information in it that you think he should read or make copies of it. Something in tons of articles that we see in Time Magazine, New York Magazine, so many that you can just share with him. There are so many ways that we can have these conversations and start them. I know it's hard, and I tell my kids when I do have these conversations that this is hard for me. I am uncomfortable talking about this stuff, but I love you, and it's really important that we do this. And even when he looks at me with that face, like he cannot wait for it to be over, I just keep going. I just keep going, and I keep telling him because I love him. So, is there anything else? I think, so we want you, trust your gut. If you're worried about something, maybe you should be worried, you can always reach out to us. My last thing is here, partner with us. We are here with you for 4 years. Please reach out to us. Educate yourself about this stuff that you're concerned about, that you don't know enough about. We're not as friends. Sometimes it's nice to have a really good relationship and have that rapport and conversations, but there are times where we really, have to be the adult, and they respect us when we are the adult, and we set those rules and boundaries. They actually say here at Xavier about, more so when they leave, about the structure of Xavier, that there was such rules. It made them feel safe, and like they knew what was expected of them. They knew what was okay and not okay. They go to college, and things are a little bit looser, and that's a little scary for them. So they do like when there's rules and boundaries. And then, I think one of the last things, so, reach out to us if you have suggestions for us about what more you need from us, or you have ideas about more work that we can do together, things like this or others. Reach out to your son's counselor and let us know what your thoughts are about this. Any questions you have, you always can reach out to your son's counselor. The video that we're filming this right now, and so it's going to go on our website. There'll be a link, a YouTube link to it in the next couple of days. Okay. And then I think our last slide is, these are some books we've read. They're good. Masterminds and Wingmen, I think, is one of the best things ever. It really talks about how your boy's life is right now, what they're going through. A lot of the stuff that we talked about today came from that and from Boys Adrift. But these are really good books if you're interested about kind of their world and understanding. So I know I went on longer than everybody, but it's not even 8 o'clock yet. I can't believe it. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. If there's any questions, we'll take a couple of questions. Can't promise I know, or any of us know everything to answer, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah.
I just wanted to recommend another book. It's
Sure.
called The Teenage Brain.
The teenage,
And
yeah,
it's written by a physician and a mother of 2 teenage sons, and it
that this isn't news to them. We let them know what the consequences are at Xavier. I'd say that's probably how we start. The conversation happens quite often, mostly in group. In some of the classes, we have had the presentations of the survey we're going to do. So the wellness survey hasn't been discussed with the students yet. We are going to give them that feedback, and that's going to be another opportunity through each year. I think we're going to do it by year rather than the whole school, and talk to each year about that. Their coaches are talking to them about it. It's happening in a lot of different areas in different ways. The consequences are pretty hefty here at Xavier if they're caught. We did. Last year there was. So last year there was. Health and sophomore year. I mean, it is covered, you know, in so many different areas in the school.
This is also not just a Xavier issue. Our country is really struggling with it. Schools on Long Island where I grew up, kids are doing the exact same thing. It's an ongoing issue, and we're definitely having the conversations with boys. I gave a presentation to the juniors, and I shared how difficult it was to never meet my grandparents who smoked cigarettes, because they died from lung disease. And I shared that you don't know what's happening with these vapes and how it's affecting your body. So it's a challenge. So if you have resources, share, reach out. We need all the help we can get.
And each year in our group, we do, everything's age appropriate. So, you know, freshmen will be different than what we're going to be doing with the juniors. But in each year, we are presenting about the dangers of it. We haven't done it yet. It's so new in the school year to really talk about that. But that is done in our group. It will be, I know it's done in health at some point. We were talking about who we're bringing in this year to present to students. There are so many things to address with them. It's like, what is the most important thing, and to bring somebody from outside to address with our boys. But we have different times throughout the year that's marked now for assembly time for them. I'm sure we will be addressing it.
I'm just kind of curious, in the data that you collected and the surveys that you did, did anything come up when the boys are starting to struggle with maybe some tension and anxiety? Did anybody mention turning to their prayer life? Does it come up in conversations as, say, a counselor's not around or they can't get to their parents? Are they turning to prayer?
In their religion classes, we're doing and we're now doing it in group with freshmen and sophomores, meditation. In their religion classes, it's meditation in the chapel. It's are they choosing to meditate or silent prayer. That's being introduced to them as an option to kind of de-stress and step away for a minute. Probably not enough to talk about prayer life with them. Probably not enough, but it's definitely something we are, I think, as a community speaking more about, that we don't speak about it enough with them.
The whole issue of vaping and any nicotine, CDC, with most recent statistics, is about 30% of this age group is vaping. And what I think it's very important that kids know is that for each one of those small jewels, equivalent nicotine is equivalent to one full-time cigarette. So whether that means anything to this age group or not, I don't know, but it's how to communicate that to them.
That's part of what, when we do meet with them in group, part of what we present to them. I'm sorry.
When you talk to the children, will you talk to them like grade?
So 2 things happen. We meet them in group guidance. So we have our freshmen in small groups, sophomore juniors in small groups. So these conversations happen in our small groups with a small presentation. This survey will be, yes, by year. It will be the whole freshman class will be, the survey will be, the wellness survey will meet with the freshman class at some point, the sophomore class, the junior class, the senior class.
For example, when you bring the
If the only way to get this person in and is to do it to the whole school, sometimes that's what we have to do. But what we try to do is not do that. The time of, when we can have assembly time, take it out of their class time, it's a juggle. It's a juggle for us to navigate and create those things within the time that we can. And then having the availability of the person, we say this is the day and the time. So we do our best. It is best when we do it by the school year, age year. The wellness survey, yes.
Did you meet with them subsequent to the survey? Meetings or discuss it with them?
We just got the results.
Oh,
We just got the results
so they're
beginning of the school year, so that's why we just shared it with you. I'm actually on a committee that's working, meeting, I think on Wednesday, to determine how we're sharing this information, who's sharing it, with the students, with the parents, with faculty, things like that. But we thought since we had you here, there was so much information, we asked if we could use some of that for you.
I would like to share this with, I feel like we are addressing the symptoms of the communication breakdown between the parents and the children. And we also talk about how the internet has been such a bad influence on children. And I don't think we talk enough about the consequences of the effects of the behavior. For example, we talk about the bad content, but at the same time, we don't really think about how internet actually took away the role of parenting from us. So instead of listening to us, they are getting all this amazing information from internet, make us look like we are bored and we are updated. And I think it's very important for children to understand that not only the bad content is not verified, but at the same time, what they are doing is they're really actually erasing us and replacing us with somebody who is hiding behind this internet that doesn't always have a good intention. So I think that I wonder if the school can actually focus, kind of shift a little bit the focus to the use of internet and why it's such a bad thing. Is that because of the horrific pornography, all these things, which is obvious. But at the same time, as much as you're spending time with your on your cell, where your parents, they are done talk to you outside of the door, waiting for you to come out.
Right. And I think that's what we're saying, so let them know that, right? So this is, together we're working on this, right? So that you're going to be letting them know that now too, right? And I think this is, we're a school that takes their,
All parents talk about that, but it's important because the school's an institution.
well, we don't, they're not allowed to have their phones here. Our message to them is no electronics here. Most classes don't have, I'm sorry, you said?
I was not talking about the school, I'm talking about the normal days.
Oh,
Like
okay.
how to get the message to them, kind of underlined message that they need to connect with.
Right, I think my point was that we are trying to model for them at school that it's not something that you need to get your information from, and that this is what you can, take away with you in life, and that this is not where we think the most important information is for you to get, that you get it from, we have a library, you have it from the conversations with your teachers, and that this is modeling what you take away outside. And of course, we do have these social media meetings and conversations with the boys about the information they're getting, where they're getting it, is it a trusted source? Is that where they get their news from? Is that where, there's these we could go on and on about how detrimental it is, right? And how much we all have to work at fighting against that. It's a battle for us, it's a battle for parents, it's a battle. So I guess I know we're ending. I've kept you all a little bit later. So I think, why don't we have, reach out to your counselor if you have any questions. This will be, again, put on our website, and there'll be a link. If you have friends, I know some people have contacted me and said that they have friends coming, and we're going to bring them information, let them know that, they can find the presentation if they like. And thank you very, very much for your attention, for your time, for your questions. Thank you.